Welcome to Safety Chats, a podcast from Portside Safety and Compliance by Baldwin. Each episode brings real-world experience, practical insight, and honest conversations about safety in aviation and beyond. Let's get started with this week's Safety Chat.
Welcome, everybody, to the Portside Baldwin Safety Chat. My name is Marie Sollazzo, and I am a Senior Safety Manager here at Portside Baldwin. Today, I have a special guest, Jermaine Cadogan from Convergent Performance is here, and we're going to have a little chat. So, Caddy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, thanks, Anne-Marie. I am Jermaine Cadogan, and my nickname is Caddy. I wish it was a cooler story, but it's just short for my last name. I am currently the president of Convergent Performance, and in a former lifetime, I spent 24 years in the United States Marine.
Thank you. Well, we're glad to have you here on the podcast. Today's topic is going to be about SMS in the maintenance world. And I know that you do a lot of training in that field with your clients. So I'm hoping that we can get some insight into what you see in the industry and how we can improve SMS overall with some of that insight. So recently, I put out a blog about this topic, and it kind of went over the differences between the safety professionals that are out there, mainly the pilots and the maintenance, and how they approach safety differently. So from your perspective, in the aviation industry, why do some safety professionals observe a more significant cultural pushback or resistance to formal SMS tools like risk assessments from those different sides, pilot side versus maintenance side? What have you observed in the industry?
Well, no, I think, Anne-Marie, it's a great question. And some of the things that I observed, like I said, now I work in the civilian side of the house as a trainer, as you mentioned. But in a former life, I worked in the military in maintenance, aircraft maintenance. And I like to tell everybody, maintenance is maintenance. Aircraft are aircraft, maintainers are maintainers, and they kind of all act the same. So whether you're on the civilian or military side, a lot of this applies. But maintenance personnel manage risk a little differently than pilots. And I think that's where a lot of the disconnect is. Pilots are kind of trained from the beginning to kind of actively manage risk. Obviously, what they do is a dynamic, uncertain environment. So they kind of have to be trained like that, whether we're talking weather, air traffic control conflicts, those types of things. And they have all these tools to do that. But in the maintenance world, it's kind of a different mindset, right? So their world is built on maintenance manuals and procedures and repeatability, those types of things, which are also important, but that's how they're brought up. So I think what it is that sometimes SMSs aren't designed with them in mind. They're designed with the pilot in mind. And so when they're introduced to the maintenance environment, they seem to be like redundant, bureaucratic, or not technical in the process. So they're like, this wasn't for us. This was for a pilot, and you're just trying to make us do it.
Almost like an afterthought. Oh, here's your SMS. Now, everybody do this. But in the build, you're just focusing on the one mainly.
Right.
And I know I've had that experience of trying to get everybody on board. And it is difficult when it comes to the maintenance side. Either the tools that are there and available for you aren't really geared toward them because you're working with, either a previous search from somebody or a copied thing from another operator to say, here, this works for them, or here, does this work for you? And you have to actually put some effort into that build for the maintenance side. And that's where I've always struggled as a safety manager, especially in implementing and also training. So getting the buy-in gets a little harder.
Yeah. And if you add in the time pressure that maintenance professionals are under, their production demands, and their measured output has nothing really to do with safety, right? Their measured output is about getting planes in the air. So, and that's the metric that they've always been measured on. A lot of times you as a safety manager, when you're coming in and saying, hey, well, I want you to do this, it just seems extra to them. It's just one more thing you're putting on my plate, on a plate that's already overflowing. And it's not because they don't care, but once again, they're not designed for their reality. The SMS isn't designed to kind of fit their processes. Like you said, it was an afterthought. It was made to fit the pilot arena. And then they kind of said, oh, we got to bring you guys in too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that kind of brings me into another question for you. In the operations that you have worked with, what types of risk assessments do the maintenance teams actually utilize? And I'm talking like, what are the subjects, the heavy hitting items that they're going to be looking at? And also the time frame. When do they do them? Are they done before every day? Are they done every week? Are they handled by the supervisor? Just to get a little insight as to what's out there.
So once again, another great question. I think for maintenance professionals, most of them live in between procedures, right? So it's from one task to the next. So when we talk about SMS and when they should report those safety types of things, let me give you some examples of times where they're thinking about those things. A big one that I see is shift turnover. A lot of organizations have what we call a day crew and a night crew, or a day check and a night check. And that is where a lot of mishaps happen. So that's one area where an SMS would be great for them, and where they sort of have some sort of safety or risk mitigation tool in place, right? Troubleshooting while they're actually working on aircraft, where they have to, put power on an aircraft, whether that be electrical power or pneumatic power, those types of things, working out on the ramp, right? On an active flight line with other aircraft moving around, those types of things. So that's where their big safety conversations happen. It happens kind of in the doing of the procedure and not as an afterthought afterwards where we report, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does. So in asking to capture that information, is it a difficulty to actually say, hey, we want you to do one more thing while you're doing it as a safety manager? Or do we trust that the checklists that they're doing are going to cover everything as a natural part of operations?
What I think is, yes, those checklists and stuff do cover that, but I think to make sure that the bases are being covered and being covered correctly, not only from the maintenance standpoint and perspective, but also from the safety manager, your job, and the SMS standpoint, there's got to be that collaboration. So they have to see it more than just, oh, there's this other thing we have to do, this other paperwork we have to do. So maybe we take some of the elements of the SMS and integrate them with those checklists and things that they're already using. So now we have that synergy, right? Now they're saying, okay, that now we're using the SMS because it's part of what we do, because it's been integrated.
Right. I'm just thinking, I always go into the data. What kind of data are we going to get out of those tools and those risk assessments? Is it frequency that we're looking at? What are the high hitting items that we can bring to leadership? Do you have any insight into that section of data? And if you don't, that's okay.
Oh, I go with the big question. I can't speak to, specific data points specifically because I don't know that. And I haven't worked with any organizations to that level of granularity.
Mhm.
If I had to come up with something, some of the things that I think could be incorporated, some of the data points that you could glean, or some of the answers to some of these questions. Is this task different from today than it was the last time? What assumptions are we making about a certain task? What could go wrong with a particular procedure, right? So the answers to those questions, especially if it's a procedure or something that we do quite often, like maybe moving an aircraft,
Hmm.
Right? Mechanics do that probably daily, right? Being able to record those answers to some of those questions could be a start. And a lot of those questions are already incorporated in a lot of human factors programs, MRM, which is maintenance resource management, and some of the checklists from the actual publications. Those questions are in there. So these are things that they're already doing. So being able to capture that could be a start.
Right. And vice versa to capture the ones that aren't the
Hmm.
norm. Because if you're not putting an aircraft on jacks all the time, you're going to take that as a definite talking point. There's those types of activities
Hmm.
that really should get that due diligence of maybe tracking that data point. How many times does that happen? And if there's any outcomes that are a result of that action or a lack of looking at that activity.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, for maintenance personnel, the SMS has to have this practical and immediate feel, if you will,
Mhm.
and it has to be integrated into the job flow. If we frame it as just another thing we have to do, that's going to turn them off, right? It has to be framed in a manner where it says, we're helping professionals think better under pressure rather than we're just documenting things. We're just getting data, which we are just getting data, but we're also doing things with that data. And I think presentation is everything. Saying that I have, and I've said this for years, I used to say it to my Marines all the time, presentation is everything. I can sell water cool well if I present it right. So presentation and how you approach the maintenance department with this SMS is of crucial importance. If you just, like I said, if we just throw it out there as just another thing we have to do, that's exactly what it's going to be looked at. Just another thing you have to do. So you got to give them the with them. And the with them is what's in it for me. How does this benefit my life? Why is it that I have to do that? It's almost like, what do I get out of it? And I know sometimes, especially for some of the older generations, they don't want to hear that. It's just do what you're told, right? But there's a sense of power in being able not only to convey to your audience what they're going to get out of it, but they also need to understand the bigger picture. And that this isn't about making you do something you don't want to do. This is about making the organization as a whole better and bringing you into that conversation. And I think it's important as a safety manager and somebody who runs the SMS that you have that conversation up front with your maintenance department.
That is 100% spot on. And actually is a great lead in to what I was going to ask as one of our final questions. So, in getting what's in it for me as a safety manager, that's all well and good, but I want to talk about, getting the leadership buy-in. So, how can aviation leadership above me get that buy-in? How can they assist the safety manager in leading that team?
Yeah. Once again, Emery, great question, because at the end of the day, leadership is going to win or lose the room, right? It's all about them. And I actually found this saying, it isn't mine. I wish it was mine, but I found this and I wrote it down. Mandates create compliance, but value creates commitment. So it goes right back to what I was saying previously. It's about presentation, right? If you want your maintenance department, all right, which is a procedural workforce, they're bound by these rules, right? These maintenance manuals and things that they have to do. There's a couple things I think that you need to enact as a leader in an organization, right? So I think the first one is you got to design the SMS with maintainers and not for them. And we've kind of talked about this here in the last couple minutes. A lot of things, and not just the SMS, a lot of training, right? Human factors. I'm in the human factors realm, and I go to a lot of organizations. We've developed a lot of human factors curriculum for maintenance professionals specifically, because a lot of the stuff that's out there is pilot human factors training that's been turned into maintenance training, except it really wasn't designed for them. We just changed the word pilot to maintenance, dishing it out. So you got to design the SMS with them and not for them. So bring them in the design process if we can. All right, wherever we can include them, all right, we need to start including them. Their language needs to be in there, their workflow, the realities of the system need to reflect their realities out there, right? So whether that be a pilot program or they're involved in the tool design and a avenue where they can give feedback. Because when people see their fingerprint, if you will, then they feel like they own it a little bit. Like, I helped do that. Like, yeah, that was my idea. And they see themselves in it. And now they want to be involved, right? Because they belong. It's ownership, right? I'm owning it now. Yeah. It makes it easier to do that. You have to set an atmosphere in your organization from a leadership perspective. And it starts at the top where speaking up makes things better, not harder. And when I say that, what I mean is if someone speaks up and reports something to the SMS, the automatic response to that shouldn't be more paperwork, make another rule, or blame and someone gets in trouble. Right? I'm not saying that happens in organizations, but it does happen sometimes. All right. So people are a little hesitant to actually speak up. All right. So once again, back to presentation, you have to have the proof that, hey, we made a recommendation in SMS, and I think we can get rid of this, this, and this. This is going to make us better. Once again, bringing them in on that conversations, and leadership has to demonstrate that reports actually lead to change and good change. Concern, change the process, and that people are protected and not punished for speaking up, and then closing the loop, right? Don't let things just hang out there. If things are reported, they need to know that information, that data that we spoke of is actually going to push change and change for the better. And then lastly, and then I'll be quiet because I know I'm talking a lot, is craftsmanship. You got to respect the craft, right? You have to keep them on the same level as we do all of our other aviation professionals, right? Our pilots, our cabin crew, our line service technicians, our maintenance professionals, they're all part of the puzzle, and we need all of them to make organizations run efficiently and safely. So you got to respect the craft.
Oh my goodness. I could not have said that better myself. Thank you for that. I absolutely agree with you 100% on everything you just said. I think that's where we're going to end it because I don't know if there's anything else to say, Caddy.
No, I mean, you would just bear with me. I do have, I guess, my closing thought.
Oh, please. Please.
I think at the end of the day, and it's an obvious closing thought. So, and as aviation industry professionals, I don't care what seat you sit in. If you're the safety manager at, an SMS organization, if you're the director of maintenance, if you're the chief pilot, if you're the lead, flight attendant, if you're the director on the ramp for line services and every other thing in between, all the way up to the C-suites and all the way down to the newest, bag handler at an FBO. Safe, predictable operations is our goal. Every last one of us. We want to be able to make sure that people get into an aircraft, fly to their destination, and land safely. And we all want that. So that is where we start. That should always be the jumping off point. And if we as organizations can continue to work together and remember that goal, there's a reason why aviation will always be the safest form of transportation, because that has to still be the number one goal and continue to be the number one. And we all want it. So
that's great. Yeah, that's exactly. And I'm so appreciative of that additional closing point you just made. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
On behalf of everybody at the Portside Baldwin team, thank you for doing this. And for all of the safety managers and the maintenance techs and the leadership people who are listening, thank you for tuning in to Safety Chats. It is appreciated. And everything you do in your SMS, it matters, and keep doing what you do. So with that, thank you, Caddy. And we're signing off here.
This podcast is brought to you by Portside Safety and Compliance by Baldwin, the leader in safety management for the transportation industry. Since 2004, Baldwin has been providing state-of-the-art solutions and 24/7 support to the aviation and transportation industries. Baldwin's clients include all sizes and types of transportation operators. Baldwin provides safety and related business services to commercial, charter medical transporters, FBOs, MROs, airports, flight schools, UAS operators, firefighters, OEMs, ground transport operators, and others. Visit baldwinsms.com to discover how Baldwin can enhance your organization's safety program.